ॐ सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां परम्पराम्
परम्पराम्
ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ
सहनावतु
भुनक्तु
सहनौ भुनक्तु
वीर्यं
सह
करवावहै
वीर्यं करवावहै
यस्मिनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. So we are on the last two Anuvakas of the last chapter of Taitriya. I will request Rituji and Nirveshji to please chant Anuvaka number 9.
Thank you, Acharya ji. Om Annam Bahupurvita Tadvatam Prithiviva Annam Akasho Nadaha Prithivyam Pratishtitaha Akashe Prithivi Pratishtita Tadetadannamanye Pratishtitam Saya etadannamanye Pratishtitam Veda Pratitishthati Annavanannado Bhavati Mahan Bhavati Prajaya Pashubhir Brahma Varchasena Mahan Kitya.
Thank you very much. Okay, so here we should note that this Vratam, the discipline of the seventh Anuvaka, is meant for the Jnani in the sixth Anuvaka. So that when we look at the various disciplines, the various Vratams, that we should be clear on. And the Vratama of the eighth Anuvaka, which we did last time, was meant for the Upasaka who was mentioned in the seventh Anuvaka. Similarly, the Vratam of this ninth Anuvaka is meant for the Upasaka of the eighth Anuvaka. So that correspondence to the previous Upasaka should be noted, just for information. Okay. Now this is the third discipline, the third Vrata. So he says, Annam Bahukurvita. May you produce plenty of Annam. So the thing is, may you have, of course, may you have plenty to eat. And if you should produce more than you require, you should share with others. Right? So cook more than you require so that you can share. Tad vratam. This is the third vratam. So with that, the third vratam is over. And in the same Anuvaka, you will see the third Upasana. Upasana is on Prithvi and Akasha. So Prithvi va Annam. Prithvi is the eaten, the consumed. Annam means what is eaten. And Akashaha, Annadaha. Annadaha is the one who eats Annam. And therefore here Akasha is the consumer. Therefore Prithvi is the consumed, the earth is the consumed, and the Akasha is the consumer. Now, understanding all this, you have to look at the totality. How can you say? See, remember that Prithvi is the uh, you know general term for any object. Any object in creation is taken as a different form of Prithvi. How do you say that Prithvi is the consumed and Akasha is the consumer? Is there any logical way of explaining that?
So during creation, Prithvi is born in a series, and from Akasha, all the other Panchabhutas are born, so it resolves into that.
No, there you're talking about the creator created. Here we're talking about a consumer consumed. Let me, give you an example, worldly example. Supposing you have to put a large stone in a particular place. What do you say?
Space.
The space will accommodate that stone. Right. So in that sense, everything is what they call, it requires space to exist. And therefore, space is the consumer and earth is the consumer. And you have to supply the reverse process also. Everything consumes space because when you put something in space, you say that space is gone. So everything consumes space. So Prithviva Annam, Akasha Annadaha. Prithvi is the consumer, space is the consumed, and conversely, space is the consumer, Prithvi is the consumed. Right? So for space is the consumer, you can go back to Srishti also. Akasha is first born and all. Okay. This is the Annam, this is the Akasha Prithvi relationship. Annam Akasha Prithvi Sambandha. And now we have to look at the next one. The Annam Annadaha Sambandha. Right. So Prithvyam Akashaha Pratishtitaha. Akashe Prithvi Pratishtita. If you are looking at the cause effect relationship, the Karanam Karyam relationship, here, what is the Karanam for Vayu? It is Akasha. Vayu is the Karanam for Agni. And then final Karyam, final product is Prithvi. Therefore, Akasha is the supporter, Pratishtita. Earlier on, we were looking at the consumer consumed. This is the supporter supported relationship. So, Prithvyam Akashaha Pratishtitaha. Akasha is the Pratishtitaha, supporter for Prithvi, and Prithvi is Pratishthitam, is the supported one. And of course, as usual, you have to supply the inverse, the converse relationship that Prithvi is the supporter and Akasha is the supported. How? How will you say that Prithvi can be the supporter and Akasha is supported? You look at a pot. For Akasha to be useful for transactions, it has to be enclosed within the pot, right? For this space to be useful to me, it has to be enclosed in a room. Therefore, space requires the support of the walls, Prithvi. Space in the pot to hold the water requires the support of the pot, again, Prithvi. Therefore, the relationship is both ways. And therefore, Tadetat Annam Anne Pratishtita. One is dependent on the other. And then, Sa etat annam anne pratishthitam Veda. So Veda is Upasana. The one who meditates on this connection, on this relationship, pratishtiti, pratishtati is supported in life. Pratishtati. And then he has some worldly benefits also. Annavan annado bhavati. He has plenty of food. Mahan bhavati. He becomes great. Prajaya Pashubihi Brahma Varchasena. He has children, he has cattle, and he has that spiritual glow, Brahma Varchasam. Mahan Kirtya, he becomes very famous. See, all the worldly benefits are also there for this Upasaka. We should note that we can take any of these two pairs, and when you meditate upon them, the idea is to see the interrelationship. Ultimately, there is nothing separate in the universe. The universe is one cosmic whole, one cosmic organism, so to say. Everything is part of the universe. There is no separate thing in the universe at all. And therefore, whenever you take these three upasanas together, remember they become the meditation on Vishwarupa Ishvara. And there is a corollary. If you have understood that everything is interdependent, you will know that nothing in creation is independent. Everything has got a dependent existence. And therefore, everything is what?
Mithya.
Therefore, everything is mithya only. So this whole upasana on Vishwarupa Ishvara will land us with the conviction that everything has a dependency and therefore everything is mithya. Therefore, the whole universe is mithya. And therefore, this universe must have a support other than what we see, other than the universe. And that Adhisthana is Brahman. Right? In this world, for example, even in this class, I am dependent for my existence as a teacher. As a teacher, I am dependent for my existence upon you, the Shishyas. And you people are dependent for your status as a Shishya, as a student, on the teacher. Therefore, both you and I are what?
Interdependent.
Which means both you and I are Mithya only. Okay. So that is the 9th Anuvaka. Rituji Nirveshji, would you please proceed to the 10th Anuvaka?
Ji.
You can read the whole thing. Yeah.
न कंचन वसतौ प्रत्याचक्षित तद्व्रतम् तस्माद्यया तया च विधया बह्वन्नं प्राप्नुयात् आराध्यस्मा अन्नमित्याचक्षते एतद्वै मुखतो ओन्नगुं राद्धम् मुखतोऽस्मा अन्नगुं राध्यते एतद्वै मध्यतो ओन्नगुं राध्यम् मध्यतोऽस्मा अन्नगुं राध्यते एतद्वा अन्ततो ओन्नगुं राध्यम् अन्ततोऽस्मा अन्नगुं राध्यते य एवं वेद क्षेम इति वाची योगक्षेम इति प्राणापानयोः कर्मेति हस्तयोः गतिरिति पादयोः विमुक्तिरिति पायौ इति मानुषी समाज्ञाः अथ दैवीः तृप्तिरिति वृष्टौ बलमिति विद्युति यश इति पशुषु ज्योतिरिति नक्षत्रेषु प्रजातिरमृतमानन्द इत्युपस्थे सर्वमित्याकाशे तत्प्रतिष्ठेत्युपासीत प्रतिष्ठावान् भवति तन्मह इत्युपासीत महान् भवति तन्मन इत्युपासीत मानवान् भवति तन्नम इत्युपासीत नम्यन्ते एस्मै कामाः तद्ब्रह्मेत्युपासीत ब्रह्मवान् भवति तद्ब्रह्मणः परिमर इत्युपासीत पर्येणं म्रियन्ते द्विषन्तः सपत्नाः पर्ये प्रिया भ्रातृव्याः स यश्चायं पुरुषे यश्चासावादित्ये स एकः स य एवं वित अस्माल्लोकात् प्रेत्य एतमन्नमयमात्मानमुपसङ्क्रम्य एतं प्राणमयमात्मानमुपसङ्क्रम्य एतं मनोमयमात्मानमुपसङ्क्रम्य एतं विज्ञानमयमात्मानमुपसङ्क्रम्य एतमानन्दमयमात्मानमुपसङ्क्रम्य इमान् लोकान् कामान्निकामरूप्यनुसञ्चरन् एतत् सामगायन्नास्ते हा वूहा वूहा वू अहमन्नमहमन्नमहमन्नम् अहमन्नादो ओहमन्नादो ॐ अहग्यश्लोककृदहग्यश्लोककृदहग्यश्लोककृत अहमस्मि प्रथमजा ऋतास्य पूर्वं देवेभ्यो अमृतस्य न धायि यो मा ददाति स इदेव मा वाह अहमन्नमन्नमदन्तमा मी अहं विश्वं भुवनमभ्यभवा सुवर्णज्योतिः य एवं वेद इत्युपनिषत् ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः
Oh, very beautiful. Please accept my compliments.
Thank you. All
Okay.
thanks to Arvindji.
Yeah. All right. So this is the last Anuvaka, the 10th and last Anuvaka, and it has two more vratams. One is Athithi Puja, which we have already seen in Sikshavalli, honoring the guest. We also call it Athithi Satkaraha. And the second one is Annadana. So first he talks about Athithi Dharma. Nakanchan Vasatau Pratyachakshita. Kanchan Vasatau. When someone comes to your place. Okay. Kanchana Vasatau. When somebody known to you or unknown to you comes to your place, Vasatau, seeking shelter for the night. You know. So Vasatau we have to take it as overnight. What is the reason? We define Atithi as a very technical definition is there. Na dvitiya tithi, tithi, iti, atithi. Na dvitiya tithi means who does not stay for a second day. Na dvitiya tithi, the one who doesn't have a second day stay at your house, iti, atithi. Very, very, careful definition. So a person who is come to stay for a long time is not a guest. A guest is the one who stays only one night. And you have to take this in the old parampara sense, like there were no hotels, there were no guest houses. In the tradition, it is considered papam, a sin, to sell food or water. And therefore, for the person who wanted to travel, there was no question of getting food, water, or any staying place anywhere. You had to depend upon the people in that place. And therefore, this was a dharma. That kanchan vasatau. When someone comes to your place seeking shelter for the night, na pratya chakshita. You should not refuse. This is the dharma. Okay, tad vratam. This is the vratam that person has to take. And Shankara adds, Yaya, Shankara, sorry, the Moolam itself says, Tasmad Yaya Kaya Cha Vidhaya Bhavannam Prapnuyat. So Yaya Kaya Cha Vidhaya means somehow or the other, you know. And that doesn't mean unlawful means. Sena Kena Prakarina, somehow or the other, using legitimate means, what should you do? Bhavannam Prapnuyat. You should have enough food at home to feed that person. Which is saying what? That not only should you offer him a bed for the night, a room for the night, you should ensure that he has food and water also. Right? Then, Aradhyasma Annam Itya Chakshate. So, and this is what is going to be said to the person. Aradhi Asmai Annam. This you should tell your guest. When he comes, you have to say, Asmai Annam Aradhi. We have prepared Aradi means prepared. We have prepared annam for you. Itya chakshate. This is the declaration to be made by you to the guest. So what does imply? Please come. We are giving you a room. You stay there. Giving you a bed. You stay there. And we have enough food also. Please come and join us. So this is the dharma of those days, which is called Atiti Dharma, honoring the guest. It is not feasible today. Why? Because we don't know who comes and who goes. If you do this, practically you are endangering yourself and your family. So it's no longer practical. Okay. Of course, many places like ashrams who have the organization still have this. Shivananda Ashram definitely has. Anybody can walk in and ask for shelter for the night. Okay. Then vase cha datte avasyam hi ashanam datavyam. This is what Shankara writes. Having given shelter, one should definitely give him food. So it's a tradition. It's a tradition that this should be done. And even though directly the Shruti doesn't say it, he just says that you should tell him that we have got food, right? So Shankara is clarifying that having given shelter, one should definitely give food. Remember this traditionally, there is a saying, I don't know how many of you have heard it. If you have a guest who has not been given food and water, then when you drink water, it is equivalent to your drinking liquor, which is papam. Okay. And if you eat without giving him food, it is equivalent to eating beef, both of which are strictly forbidden in Shastra. So that's a tradition that if you have a atiti, if you have a guest, you have to feed and you have to give him water also. Otherwise, major papam will be on your side. Then the next part is etadvai mukhato annam radham mukhato asma annam radhyate. So etadvai mukhato annam. So mukhataha here means with a proper, you know, literally with a proper face. Okay. So you can take it as with a very healthy attitude. Radham, you should serve the food. Right? Why is this being said? This is trying to figure out the the body language of the person who is giving food. And therefore, Shastram divides Annadanam into Uttamadanam, Madhyamadhanam, and Adhamadanam. Right? And Uttamadhanam will produce Uttama Phalam only. So Uttamadhanam includes the attitude. Whether you're smiling face you give, or you bang that, plate on his table and say, eat. So it's a good host versus an indifferent host. This is what is being talked about. You have to be a outstanding host. And mukhataha asma annam radhyate. Not only that, this annam, which I am serving with good grace, with a good attitude just now, should be served in the future also with the same healthy attitude. And how will this annam result in phalam? That the consequences, the phalam of this annam, of this karma by looking after the guest, it expresses in the form of what? That I will always have annam from others. As I give, in the same manner will I receive. If I give happily now to everybody, I will receive happily from everybody, including my children. So the very what you call karmic theory, you will be treated as you treat the others. Like you smile at the mirror, it smile backs at you. Yatha karma, tatha phalam. Basic rule of karma. And therefore the universe, it is said, is a mirror. Everything it does, it shows you. And it comes back to you. Then etadvai madhyato annam radham madhyato asma radhyate. So the earlier one was what? Uttama prakarena. Good attitude. Now he says, etad vai madhyato annam radha. If this food is prepared and served, madhyama prakarena, with a mediocre, not bad, not good, somewhere in the middle, with a mediocre attitude, then you, the annadata, the person who is giving the annam, will also receive in a mediocre way in the future. So, madhyato asma annam radhyate, I will also get it in the same way. Right? Then comes the inferior way. Etadva antato annam radham. Antato asma annam radhyate. If the food is prepared in an inferior manner, you will also receive the same attitude in future. Ye evam veda. This is the basic principle of karma. What is that? You can withdraw from the karma bank only what you have deposited. Ye evam veda. The person who has understood in this manner, ye evam veda. There is no continuation of the sentence. Okay, the sentence is incomplete. So we have to say that that person, we have to complete the sentence. Ye evam veda. The person who has understood in this manner, what will happen to him? He will get the benefit of this knowledge. So that is what is said in this much portion. And then the next couple of lines, starting from Shema Etivachi. So we will go up to Shema Etivachi, then Yogakshema Iti Pranapana Yoho, Karma Iti Hasta Yoho, Gatiriti Pada Yoho, Vimuktariti Payau iti manushi samagyaha. So we'll take up this sentence now. So now there is a group of meditation being prescribed. It's a group. So in each group you will have several individual ones. So there are basically two groups. One is called the Adhyatmika Brahma Upasanani, right? Based on yourself. So every Upasana is a meditation on Brahman only. That's why it's called Brahma Upasana. But what is the difference? The alambanam, the, the locus on which you are invoking Brahman. It's upasana, remember, we are not talking about jnana. So upasana, so it's a locus on which you are invoking Brahman. And here, for this upasana, different organs in the body will be taken as the locus of invocation, which we call alambanam. Right? Normally, what do? You take a Shivalinga as alambanam or a Pratikam as alambanam, something, or even words as alam, right? But here you are taking the organs of the body, which is Adhyatmika, relating to you. And therefore it is called Adhyatmika Brahma Upasana. So, iti Manushi Samagyaha. In this group, the first group, the Indriyas, the sense organs are the locus of the invocation, the alapanams. And that is why Adhyatmik Upasana. And how will you meditate? You will take Brahman and invoke upon a particular sense organ. And what does it mean by meditation on the sense organ? It means you think about the power of that respective organ and then meditate on that as Brahman's glory. So we have seen this in the Bhagavad Gita also, Vibhuti Yoga, same thing. Of course, the one small thing is that when you here it says Manushihi. Manushihi is relating to the person, right? Basically, Adhyatmika. So there are two words which have been changed. Instead of Adhyatmika Upasana, yes, the Shruti says Manushi Samagya. Samagya is Upasana. Okay. Now, okay, let me go to the next one. Kshayama iti vachi. The first organ is vach, vagendriyam, the organ of speech. And you should meditate upon that organ of speech. So you should see how the words fall. Kshema iti vachi. So third word is the organ to be taken. So vakindriyam, the sense organ of speech you have to take. And then how should you meditate? Kshema iti. Kshemaha is what? What is the definition of Shema?
It's preserving what you've already acquired.
Preserving what has been acquired. So Utpata Parirakshanaha, says Shankaracharya, which means preservation of whatever has been acquired. So the complete sentence here should be Kshemaha iti vachi brahma upasita. Meditate upon Brahman as Kshemaha, the vak organ. Now the question is that what is the faculty of speech which is available to Vagindriyam? Vagindriyam's faculty is only speech, right? And we said that you have to meditate upon the faculty of these respective sense organs. But the sense organ of speech, what is the faculty? It's speech. How do you say it should be kshemaha? How do you say that? It should be taken as preservation. So the answer is what? There is a very nice subhashitam. Lakshmir vasati jihvagre. Jihvagre mitra bandhava. Bandhanam chaiva jihvagre maranam dhruvam. So it says Lakshmi vasati jihva agre. Lakshmi sits on the tongue of the person who has a sweet tongue. Wealth comes to the person who talks sweetly to the people. Then jivhagre mitra bandhava. Friendship also rests on the quality of your tongue. If you are a person who is always got a sharp tongue, you won't have too many friends. Then bandhanam chaiva jivhagre. So bandhanam here can be taken in many ways. You can also take it as if you give, very inflammatory speeches, you can be arrested. Or people will just abandon you. This is as good as being sent into solitary confinement. So bondage also is decided by whether your tongue is sweet or not. And then the last one, Jivhagre Maranam Dhruva. The one who has a very sharp tongue, for him, death is sure. Right? So what is it? If you have a very sweet speech, the absence of wealth, etc., will not be noticed because everybody is enamored with your sweet speech. And that is why we say that Saraswati is Vagdevi in the form of Vagshakti. So because of that, because if you got a sweet tongue, you will be able to preserve everything that you have. Not only that, you will be able to get more also. So therefore, Shemaha is taken as the overall result of the faculty of speech. And therefore, Kshemaha iti. It is just not meditation upon the power of speech. It is a meditation upon everything that is the result of that power of speech, using it properly. Okay. Then the next one is Yoga Kshema iti Pranapanayo. This is another meditation. So, may you meditate upon Brahman as Yogaha and Kshemaha. And where are they? They are in Pranaha and Apanaha. Again, I will remind because many of us are yogis. So, the meaning of Pranaha and Apanaha are entirely different in Vedanta. In reversed, actually. In yoga, prana means what? Inhalation. Apana is exhalation. But the correct definition is Prak Gamanavan Vayuhu Pranaha. Prana means, Prak means outwards. Gamanavan, traveling. Vayuhu, air. The air which travels outward is called Pranaha, which means exhalation. And Adho Gamanavan Vayu, Apanaha. Adho means downwards. The air which travels downwards is called inhalation. So Adho Gamanavan Vayu is Apanaha. Right? So you have to meditate upon yoga and kshema as residing in the prana and apanaha. And yogaha, you know, what is yogaha? Apraptasya praptihi. Acquisition of what I don't have. That is yogaha. Kshemaha is praptasya rakshanam. So two very nice definitions. Apraptasya praptihi. So apraptasya praptihi yogaha. Acquiring what I do not have is yogaha. Praptasya rakshanam kshemaha. Preservation of what I have is kshemaha. And how do we say that both reside in the breathing? It's a very nice question. What is the answer?
Only when you are living can you think of acquiring or preserving.
Yes, very good. If you are not breathing, prana apanaha, neither can you acquire, nor is there need to retain. I don't know how many of you have read a story called by Tolstoy, I think it is. How much land does a man need? You know the story?
I've read it, Acharya. I don't remember it. In school, I have read it, I remember.
But only as
much as he
you
can.
Yeah,
need.
so there was a story, very nice one. There was this man who was very ambitious. So he had a landlord who owned a lot of land, and he thought, I will teach this guy a lesson. So the landlord told him that you want land? Fine. We will have a competition. On Monday in the morning, you come at 6 o'clock, and then the clock starts when you start running, and the clock stops at 6 o'clock in the evening, 12 hours. Whatever land you can cover in that run of 12 hours is yours. I will give you that land. So this man was very happy, So he started running. And every time he looked at the clock, some more time left. So again he ran. He would increase his circle. And finally, then he realized that, oh, its time is getting over. So he started running very fast during the last couple of hours where he was actually very tired already. And he had not stopped for water or food. So he was exhausted. Finally, he reached back to the starting point at 6 o'clock. And then his heart gave way and then he died. The question is, how much land did he really need? He needed enough to get buried. Okay. So, very relevant over here. And therefore, you should meditate. Right? Of course, Sankara writes a very beautiful comment. He says that do not understand this as thinking that breathing is the cause of Yogakshema. You have to go further back. What is the cause of breathing? It is Ishvara. And therefore, Ishvara is the cause of Yogakshema. Therefore, you have to meditate that upon Brahman alone as the cause of that breathing. Kena Upanishad reminiscence are here. What is that which is the breath of the breath? Ishvara alone, Brahman alone. And therefore, in each of the sense organs, Ishvara is available as the alambana. In each sense organ, each indriya, he must be seen as the power of that indriya. And therefore, Shankara says, in all future upasanas, future means coming in this later upasanas, coming in the text also, Ishvara must be worshipped as the respective power, like Shema in the speech. But remember that Saguna Brahma Ishvara alone is the upasi. Very beautiful portion. Then Karmeti Hastayoho. This is the next upasana. May you meditate upon Brahman as karma in the hasta, as karma in the hands. What is the reason? What is the understanding? My hands perform karma, but the performance of that hand on doing karma is dependent upon prana, and prana is dependent upon Brahman, right? Remember that even your hands are necessary because karma is necessary for chitta shuddhi also. Karma is necessary for any of the purusharthas. And karma is residing where? Hasta yoho, in your hands. It is a function of the hands. Therefore, whenever you do any action, what should you do? Meditate upon that power of your hand as Brahman. Meditate upon the Brahman, which is expressing as the Shakti of our hands to do some karma. And similarly, the next upasana, Gatiriti Padayoho. I won't explain more, but same thing. Gati iti Padayoho. Pada means legs. So, Gati is the movement, and therefore, may you meditate upon Brahman as the very movement of your legs. Every time you walk, don't think I am walking. Meditate saying, it is Brahman. Ultimately, that Brahman I am. But it is Brahman who is expressing as the walking power in my leg. Then the next upasana, Vimuktiriti Payoho. So Vimukti is evacuation through the anus. Payo is the anus. So Vimukti iti payoho. May you meditate upon Brahman as the power of the anus, the power of the evacuation power of the anus, without which my body would become toxic in no time. Because if I don't expel what is not required, my body will die very soon. So meditate upon Brahman as the very power of that evacuation. Vimuktariti payoho. So from these meditations, what is the idea being conveyed? That every organ is auspicious, every organ is necessary, every organ is sacred, and that is why anus is included. It is not dirty, it is necessary, it is sacred, which is why I look upon my entire body as divine and sacred. And remember that when you come to Jnanam, if there is any part of your body which you think is dirty, you will not be able to effectively claim that Aham Brahmasmi. That is the first idea, that every part of the body is sacred. The second is that the body is anatma and you should not be attached to it. Right? So everywhere you say, right from Bhagavad Gita to all the Upanishads we have seen, we say that you should do deha abhimana tyaga, renunciation of the attachment to the body. But here what are we teaching? Yes, Shastra says renounce the attachment to the body, but do not interpret this as dislike of the body. Deha dvesha is not what is recommended. And therefore, any school or any rituals where the body is insulted or tortured is not, does not have any foundation in Veda. Because it is not the purpose of this teaching. Veda says don't have attachment, but Veda also says do not have hatred for the body. Because without that body, where is the question of moksha? Without that body and mind, there is no question of moksha. And that is why, if you remember, in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that tapas, which involves a torture of the body, is tamasic tapas. Then iti manushi samagyaha. The word iti indicates the end of the section on upasana. So he said, this is adhyatmika upasana. Iti manushi samagyaha. The adhyatma upasanas have ended. Now Shankara writes a very nice comment over there. He says that normally when any Shastra prescribes a sadhana, what is also indicated together with it, with the sadhana, usually we have seen that several times all over Chandogya we have seen all over Taitriya also. Once Shastram prescribes a sadhana, it will invariably indicate phalashrati.
Phalam.
Phalam it will indicate. But here, the upasana is prescribed, but there is no phalam. And therefore, phalam which is written. I'm not saying there is no phalam. There is phalam, but phalam is not mentioned. And therefore, Shankara says that you have to supply, based upon your knowledge of Shastram so far, you have to supply. And how do you supply the phalam for upasana? Depending on whether it is sakama or nishkama. If there is sakama, you would have done a particular, sankalpaha. And therefore, that phalam will be based on sankalpa. If it is nishkama, the phalam is what?
Chitta-shuddhi and jnana-yogyata.
Chitta-shuddhi, jnana-yogyata, prapti. For sakama, you have to remember, yatha yatha upasate, tadeva phalam bhavati. The way in which you practice the upasana, the motivation for you, the sankalpa, that is the phalam. So if you have a sakama upasana on kshema, then kshema is your phalam. If you practice sakama upasana on yoga kshema, then yoga kshema is your phalam. As is the upasana, so will be phalam. So the iti manoshi samagyaha, with this the adhyatmika upasana is over. Then now we start from atha daivihi and go up to sarvam ityakashe. So just 2 lines away. Atha daivihi triptiriti vrishtau balamiti vidyuti yasha iti pasushu ज्योतिरिति नक्षत्रेषु प्रजातिर अमृतम आनंदम इत्युपस्थे सर्वम इत्याकाशे. So the first 2 words, first sentence, atha daivihi, indicates that now we have come to daivi upasana, daivika meditation. So in this daivi, you will see various natural powers, natural forces being taken, and the meditation is being prescribed to see them as Brahman, as manifestations of Brahman, and therefore nothing but Brahman alone. Triptirite Vrishthau, the first meditation. Vrishthau, rain. And what should you meditate upon that rain as? Triptihi iti. Triptihi means contentment. Therefore, Vrishti is rain, Tripti is contentment. And how will you connect rain and contentment? Because rain is necessary for food, and food is what satisfies your hunger. You'll be content only when food is there, and therefore, triptir iti vrishtam. And what is the hetu, the very force behind the rain? Brahma, Brahma upasita. Meditate upon that tripti which removes your hunger as the rain, and which is powered by, which is ultimately Brahman only. In fact, there are many Upanishads which talk about rain. No? Chandogya Upanishad we have seen. Prashna Upanishad we have to see. They all talk about rain as upasyam. Then balam iti vidyuti. So this vidyuta is lightning. And we have seen the lightning upasana somewhere else. A reference to lightning in another small little Upanishad. Where is that? Kena Upanishad. Where is the reference to lightning?
The story at the end of the
Story.
Upanishad.
The Yaksha came like Vidyuta itself. Right? That celestial being came like light. So, Balam iti vidyutihi, that lightning, may you worship it as Balam, power, energy, right? Then, what is behind the energy? Brahman. Then is the next upasana. Yashaha iti pashushu. So, in all these, remember, these are all sentences where you have to add Brahma upasita. So, Balam iti vidyuti Brahma upasita. Yasha iti pashushu Brahma upasita. That Brahma upasita has to be carried forward everywhere. So, Pashu is cattle, and cattle in the old days meant wealth, right? In fact, in some of the Upanishads, we have seen that even Dakshina was in the form of giving cows. Which Upanishad we saw?
Kathopanishad.
Very good. You guys are up to date. Okay, so Yasha Yeti Pashashu is the Mula, and Pashu is the cattle. You should meditate upon the cattle. In what form? Yashaha. So on your well, you meditate as fame. Why? Person who is fame, who is very wealthy, is also very well known. Right? A person who has a lot of wealth is well known. Therefore, Pashu and Yashaha, they are connected. So meditate upon your wealth as fame and see that Brahman as the fame in the Pashu. In your wealth, wealth gives you fame, but that wealth is not your glory. It is Brahman's glory only. See Brahman there. Then the next one. Jyotiriti nakshatreshu. The nakshatram is what? Stars. And therefore you should meditate upon the stars and see the glory of Brahman as Jyotihi iti, as the light. Those stars, okay, we can distinguish between original stars and planets borrowing light. Okay, now we're talking about planets which borrow lights, not original suns or stars. So that distinction we should remember. When we say that meditate upon the star as Jyoti iti, you are saying meditate upon the star as the original light which belongs to the sun. The star is a planet, and therefore planets only borrow the light. Right? So whenever you see the planet, whenever you see the moon, for example, you have to remember the sun. Whenever you see Venus, you have to remember sun. Whenever you see Mars, you have to remember sun. The sun is the original light. These are only reflections. Okay. And therefore, whenever you see, meditate upon the stars, any planetary body which is bright, you have to remember the source of the original light. So, then, as what? As Brahma Upasita, as Brahma. That will supply everywhere. Then Prajatir Amritam Anandam Ityupasthe. Prajatihi Amritam Anandaha. So Brahman should be meditated upon as Amritam, as Anandaha. In what? In the children. Right? So here the organ is what? The Upasthendriya, the reproductive organs. So Brahman should be meditated upon as the children in the Upastha Indriyam. And this is Amritam. Amritam here has to be taken as attainment of relative immortality. It is not absolute immortality. Absolute immortality is Brahman. The relative immortality you connect to children. Why? Because you think that you will live on in your children. Right? So Shastra says that your attempt to have children is basically an attempt to make yourself immortal as living on in your children. So that's one reason, good reason to have children, but not good reason to have 20 children. One is sufficient. Okay. Now, a little side note over here. Every Vaidika, according to Shastram, is born with three debts. Rana, it's called Rana. three texts. What are they? Devarana, Rishirana, and Pitrarana. Right? How do we remove this Devarana, the debt to the Devatas? By doing Devayagya. How do you remove Rishirana, debt to the Rishis?
By doing Parayanam, Japa, and
By doing Parayanam, Japa, Adhyanam, which is all called Brahma Yajna. Right? And then the Pitrana is there. Right? It is not the Pitra Yajna, can be paid off by doing Pitra Yajna. But Shastram says it is not sufficient for you to do the Yajna alone. Like you yourself doing the Yajna is necessary, but it should, what they call, um, it will, of course, what is in your hands is only that you can do the Yajna, right? So Pitra Yajna you have to do. But Shastra says it is your responsibility to ensure that even after you are dead, the Yajna continues to the Pitrus, the ancestors. How will you do that?
Having children.
having children.
Having children. Okay, so this is the connection to this particular thing. Prajati Amrita Mananda. You have to have children to ensure that you don't violate that Vedic duty. Right? Okay. Now, Manusmriti somewhere says that all these Vedic obligations you need to drop when the mind is ready for jnana. It's just a side note. Okay. So we have seen Prajati and Amritam over here. Then Sukham. One is supposed to get Ananda through children. Hence the third feature of Upastha Indriyam is Ananda. And he says Etat Sarvam. All these three, Prajati, Amritam, and Ananda, they are all what? Upastha Nimittam, are the cause of the Upastha Indriya, operation of the Upastha Indriya. All of them are Brahman. Brahman resides in Upastha in these three forms. Brahman resides in the reproductive organ in these three forms. Prajati as children, Amritam as living on, and Ananda. And that Brahman is the Upasya. Right? Now, I don't know if you noticed. This section is what section?
You said it is Adi Devika, but it still talks of the Indriya.
Of an Indriyam, right?
Yeah.
So, the only answer for that is, which is said by some commentators, is that this Upasana has to be reclassified under the Adhyatmika Upasanas. There is no mysterious explanation. The Shastra has put it here, but you have to reclassify it here. So that Iti Manushi Yagnya, that particular line, Iti Manushi Samagnya, has to be lifted from there and brought in here mentally. You cannot change the actual placement of Shruti. Shruti is sacred. So then we have to come to the second group of upasanas, which we will do in the next class. The next class, I suppose the next session would be mostly the last one of Taitriya Upanishad. Any questions?
And which text will we begin after that, Acharya?
The biggest one.
Brihadaranyaka.
No, Brihadaranyaka will come in Upanishad 1. Here we will do Mandukya Vishaya, not Dharana Upanishad 2. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Vasishyate Om Shanti 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 Om Tat Sat.
Hari
Om Namah
Om. Thank you,
Shivaya.
Ravi ji.
Om Namah
Thank
Shivaya.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Acharya ji.